I've been talking about the bishop, and I want to tell a story about the one time in my law practice career when I did something that was illegal. I had a friend that I'll be talking about in other videos named Luther Strong, and he we'd become friends in 1963, and my dad died in 1976, and it was a few years after that this happened. The story I'm going to tell. I was representing Luther's mom and dad, who'd been hit in an intersection by a careless driver, and they both had injuries, not life-threatening, but the kind of injuries that don't go away right away. You continue to have pain in your joints. And so I had filed a lawsuit for both of them, and the insurance company finally made an offer, and it was insultingly low, like insurance companies are wont to do. And then if you push them right up to the day of the trial, they will make their best guess at what a jury might do and offer something close to that. Well, they'd given the first offer. I'd told the Luther's parents about it, and they'd said, they agreed with me, no, that's not enough. So I told the insurance company that. We were going to let a little time pass, and knowing that when we got close to the day of the jury trial, they'd negotiate better. But all of a sudden, one day, Luther's mother called up, and she says, we need to settle that case. And I said, well, we're kind of waiting for a better time to make a counter offer. And she said, well, Mr. Strong's in the hospital. And I said, oh. So I went over there to see him, and the Luther was there. The old man's name was Luther too, by the way. But I said, well, how's your dad doing? He says, he's not doing too well. He's pretty close. He's in a coma. And I said, oh my God. Oh my God. So I went back to my office. This is before the days of cell phones. And I called up the insurance agent, and I said, is that offer you made still on the table? And he said, yeah, sure. And I said, well, could we settle that today? And he says, yes. I said, well, can you bring the settlement papers and the check down to the desk? He said, I'll bring them to the desk. You can just come by my office and get them. So I went over there. He didn't seem to smell a rat at all. So I went over and got them and went over to the hospital and started talking with Luther. And how's your dad doing? Well, he hasn't come to yet. And I says, well, is he waking up periodically? Yes, he is. Yes, he's not completely out of it yet, but it's not looking good at all. And I says, well, here's the check, and I want you to go back into the room with him and get him to sign this check. And he looked at me like, I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. I said, no, you don't understand. Get your father to sign this check. And so he look came over his face that he understood what I was saying, and he went into the room with his father. I did not go in there. I never saw his father on his deathbed. But in a few minutes, he came back out with the check signed. I immediately took the check, got in my car, and drove from Portland over to Vancouver, where the bishop was in retirement. And the bishop loved to drink. And it was in the middle, a little bit in the latter part of the afternoon, but it was not close to 5 o'clock yet. But anyway, I came up to the door. The bishop, who was past 90 then, I don't want to say bounded to the door, but he came to the door vigorously and opened the door, grabbed my hand, pulled me in, and said, what can I pour you to drink? And I said, whiskey, thank you very much. I don't remember too many times in my life that I wanted to drink more than I did at that moment, because I'd broken the law. That man did not sign that check. His son did. Nobody ever told me that. I just told him, you take this back in there and get your father to sign it. And he came back out with his father's signature on it. But I didn't sleep well that night. This is not the kind of thing that I ever did, ever, ever. But that time I did. I could just see that money flying out the window, because if he'd have died without our settling it, then we would have had to transfer the claim over to his estate, and the value of things just drops. So the next morning, I called to see how Luther, to see how his dad was doing. And he says, well, it's a funny thing. He woke up this morning and spoke to us a little bit and smiled, and then he closed his eyes and died. So then I was greatly relieved, because I knew that the nurse's notes would indicate that there'd been some consciousness between the time that he was last seen with his eyes open, so to speak, then, and I wouldn't be accused of having forged a signature on a settlement check. As I say, I want to repeat myself. I never did anything like that any other time. But this family, I'd been so close to them for so long, I just did not want to see them lose their claim. Well, when I got over there, the bishop served me a drink, and we had a drink and a nice talk, and I thought a lot about the fact that he was the next thing I had to a father after my father died. I always knew he would be glad to see me and be approving of me. So that was me and the bishop and the check that got signed.